Shalom and welcome to Secrets Revealed, the Holy Bible. Today we're going to cover Exodus chapters 31 and 32, if time allows. I'm going to keep an eye on the clock. 12:15 will be the time that will stop the video. So Exodus chapter 31, there are 18 verses. Verse 3, is this simply a semantic difference? A divine spirit of wisdom. I have filled him with a divine spirit of wisdom. Talking about the person Bezalel will be given a divine spirit of wisdom to do the work that he's been given to do. And then the Maz says, I have filled him with the spirit of Elohim. I'm leaning towards this is probably a semantic difference. Essentially, it is a spirit that is of Elohim. It is divine. It is not earthly. It is heavenly. To invent in every work, this is still verse 3, versus in understanding and in knowledge and in all manner of workmanship. So all manner of workmanship versus invent in every work. So you can see there's a slight difference there in that he can create, invent many different works versus just all manner of workmanship. So you can interpret that depending on how you interpret it. It can be different or it can be very similar. Verse 4, frameworks versus devise cunning works. So he's framing works with work in gold, silver, but to devise cunning works. I think the wording of devise and cunning sounds very malicious. It doesn't sound good. It sounds kind of like the devil, is the most cunning and, devising things. It's like you're planning something, which you shouldn't. But when you come down to it, the sept is saying that he's framing these works. He's the one actually putting them together, creating a framework, so to speak. You have blue and purple and spun scarlet. So he was skilled not only in works of gold and silver and brass and framing the works, but also in embroidery and those materials, working with those materials as well. Verse 6, and to everyone understanding and heart, I have given understanding, versus, and in the hearts of all that are wise-hearted, I have put wisdom. So that is worded differently. It's not understanding and heart. It's saying in the Maz that it is hearts that are wise-hearted. Okay, I think that's a semantic difference as well. Here's a significant difference here. In the last part of the verse, it says, I have commanded thee in the Maz, versus I have appointed thee in the sept. So under your care, responsibility, delegated or assigned, that's appointed. Commanded is to be ordered. So one is more of a bestowing, a spirit of bestowing or giving a privilege or an honor. So when the Father appoints us to a work, he's giving us this privilege, this honor of doing this work, a responsibility that has been assigned to you. It's been delegated versus I commanded you. The other one is more forceful. You're obligated to do it purely out of necessity, not because of a potential relationship, a special relationship that you have with the Father based on love, based on his love for his creation as well. It's a relationship that goes not just one way, it's a two-way relationship, a mutual respect. That's verse 6. Moving on now to verse 13. Most of the verse is different. Sometimes I personally feel that the Hebrew that is left untranslated obscures the true meaning of what the Father is trying to convey, how many will take the time to look up the meaning of these words in Hebrew? Not many will do that. But let's look at verse 13. Do you also charge the children of Israel, saying, take heed and keep my Sabbaths? Versus, verily my Sabbaths you shall keep. Oh, he's saying, listen and keep my Sabbaths. Not, truly you're going to do this. How does he know that? There's no guarantee people will do things. You can't force anyone to do anything. For they are a sign between with me and among you throughout your generations, that you may know that I am Yah, that does sanctify you. Okay, so that's verse 13. So I'm not sure where the untranslated Hebrew is in this verse. I don't see it. Maybe I missed it. Let me just look over, see where I missed it. Okay, well, I'm not sure I included that comment there, but anyway, we'll keep going. Verse 14, Sabbaths. Notice Sabbaths is plural in the sept, which includes the high Sabbaths and possibly the land Sabbaths, the Shemitah every 7 years, as well as the Jubilees, which is less probable, I would say. Would be included in that for the Sabbaths, but who knows, it could be. And then destroyed versus cut off. That is a continuous difference between the texts. This is probably the last time I'll mention it, unless it is an important part of the narrative or the narrative changes altogether. Verse 15, holy rest to Yah, the seventh day Sabbath, versus a Sabbath of rest, holy to Yah. So the day is holy to Yah, but so too is the rest, as the Sept correctly describes it. So the rest is holy to us as well. Verse 16, Sabbaths is plural again. It could refer to there being multiple weekly Sabbaths in the course of a year, or to the high Sabbaths. The narrative only mentions the weekly one, so I'm going to lean towards the former. Verse 17, he ceased and rested, versus rested and was refreshed. So our Father's energy is endless. It does not need to be refreshed. He simply stopped doing the creative work on the seventh day, because this is a day he sets apart to Yah, for the worship of Yah, and for the relationship between him and us. And not only between him and us, but him and all his creation, yes, including the angels. Though they may not need a physical rest as well, but this is only an added benefit from the Sabbath commandment. You see, when you stop and you take the time to invest in the relationship, to nurture a relationship you have with whatso have you, your animal, your family, your anyone that you have a significant relationship with, a significant other, that's important. You take not only the time, but the quality time, so you don't, you're not distracted by anything else. And that's, the Sabbath is one way that can be done. Okay, so that's all the differences for that chapter. Chapter 31. We're going to move on now to Exodus chapter 22. There are 35 verses, and we're doing pretty good for time. So verse 2, the word sons was added. Perhaps men are not supposed to wear earrings, apparently. Verse 6, the first half is referring to Aaron, not the people, because only Aaron could offer the offerings as the high priest. In the Mass, it says they rose up early. No, it's he. He, Aaron, not they. It wasn't just anyone or the Israelites. It was him. He's the only one who could legally do it. Verse 7, go quickly versus get you down. This is urgent. Go quickly. Transgressed versus corrupted themselves. So one is something forgivable. The other seems to imply that they are broken. They're corrupted. Maybe they cannot be redeemed because they're just too far gone. They're too far away. They reached the point of no return. Verse 8, again, that's speculation on my part, but I think it can be read that way, can be interpreted that way. Verse 8 says, you commanded versus I commanded. They have quickly gone out of the way which you commanded. So Yah is saying, you commanded them, although technically it was Yah that commanded them, but it was through Moses. So he's saying, you commanded them, because he had to use Moses as that voice, because they didn't want God to speak to them anymore. Recall Elohim to speak to them. Verse 9 was added. It's not in the Septuagint. And Yah said to Moshe, I have seen this people, and behold, it is a stiff-necked people. So that's not actually there in this verse. So I say it's a huge difference. Not saying that they aren't stiff-necked, but that's just not there. So that's a huge difference. It's just not in that narrative, in the original text. Verse 11, prayed. Moses prayed versus besought. Verse 12, lest at any time the Egyptians speak, saying with evil intent. And the Maz, wherefore, why should the Egyptians speak? Be merciful to the sin of your people. Right at the end of the verse, versus repent of this evil against your people. It's a big difference. Why? Why is this a big difference? It wasn't evil or wrong for Yah to kill them. It was right and just. Moses was simply asking for mercy to be extended. That's what the Sept is saying. Be merciful to the sin of your people, which they did not deserve. Well, they did in fact deserve to be consumed, to be killed. But perhaps Yah wanted to see and prove what was in Moses' heart. Specifically, what was his heart towards the people he was given to lead now. Would he put them, their lives, before his own life? Would he intercede for them? So that's an important point. I might make that the title of this video, in fact, that was God justified in killing the Israelites when he said, with evil intent, he brought them out. But anyhow, yeah, I think I'm going to make that the title. Let me just pause it for a moment to scroll up. So I could very well make this video, the title of this video, now let me alone, I will be very angry with them and consume them, and I'll make you a great nation. So was Elohim justified in killing Israel? I would say yes, he was. He's not going to do anything that's unrighteous. But this was a test for Moses to see his heart towards the people, most likely. And he didn't ask for him to repent of this evil, to turn from it. He said, be merciful to the sin of your people. God isn't committing evil. He's doing what's right. He's actually showing them mercy in a way of putting them out of their misery. But Moses was saying, okay, you know what? They did sin, but be merciful to the sin of the people, of your people. So that's all for that verse. Verse 14. And Yah was prevailed upon to preserve his people, and Yah repented of the evil which he thought to do to the people. No, it wasn't evil. It wasn't an evil judgment, it was righteous. But let's just look at this a bit closer now, more in depth. So, what does it mean that Yah was prevailed upon? He was persuaded successfully by Moses. He wasn't triumphed over through superiority of strength. Ironically, Abraham is another key figure who was able to prevail upon or to persuade our father. And perhaps Moses bringing up Abraham was intentional. Notice that he said, remember Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, your servant. So he brought this name up to mind for probably a very intentional reason, as a reminder to our Father that, one person interceded for the people, a people that deserve to be wiped out. But a person can make a difference, one person interceding for mercy. Because, yes, our Father is merciful, but you have to ask for the mercy. You won't get mercy if you don't ask for it. Not that he'll never be merciful, but sometimes just asking for mercy shows, it's a test for us that whether we believe he's merciful. And there's also a principle that ask and you shall receive. Sometimes people are given things that they don't really deserve. And then on the other hand, there are times where we only get the things that we work for. You reap what you sow. You can pray and pray all night until, the dark, from morning till night, for God to give you something. But if you don't work for it, he's not going to give it to you. So sometimes we do need to plead, we need to beg, we need to put the effort, and we will reap what we put into it. So in a way, yeah, when you ask for mercy and you do have faith that he will be merciful, he will give it gladly too. Okay, so moving on. So it was upon to preserve his people versus repented of the evil. Okay, so this is, he was prevailed upon to preserve his people versus repented of the evil / calamity which he thought to do unto his people. So that's worded very differently. Again, it's not evil. He was prevailed upon by Moses. Persuaded successfully is the better way to describe prevailed upon. Verse 15, hands versus hand. They were not handheld, the tablets of the testimony or tables. He needed to use both hands to carry them. They were sizable. Okay, verse 18, the voice of them that begin the battle, nor the voice of them that cry of defeat, but the voice of them that begin the banquet of wine do I hear. So that's a significant difference versus the voice, the noise of sing. The noise of sing. So it's one thing to hear a voice of those that begin the banquet of wine. You know what that sounds like? It's people who are getting drunk, versus the noise of them who are singing, like karaoke, or some people doing a kumbaya kind of sing along. No, it's not that. It's a very different voice. It's a significant difference. I'd say that's a big difference. Let's just put that there, big difference. Verse 19, notice the people didn't see Moses break the tablets because he was approaching the camp and he saw the calf, the dancing, and Moses, being very angry, cast the 2 tablets out of his hands. He broke them to pieces under the mountain. They didn't even know that Moses broke the tablets. That's an interesting detail in the story. Verse 22 says, impetuosity, which means impulsive or rashness, lack of thought, or impatient, versus mischief. So Aaron said to Moses, be not angry, my Lord, for you know the impetuosity of this people. So it means don't be mad at them because you know that these people are impulsive. You know, they're rash. They don't really think. They're impatient. Now, how many people could confess that, hey, I can be impulsive sometimes. I can make rash decisions. Sometimes I act without thinking. Sometimes I am impatient. But to say that they are set on mischief, that's very malicious. You have a very low opinion of these people. And that's just not the case. Our Father isn't like that. He knows his people, and he described them correctly as impetuous, that they are impulsive and impatient. So I just want to clear that one up. That's a big difference as well. So in a way, you can see the Septuagint actually shows the Israelites in a much more favorable light. They aren't the stiff-necked people as described in the Masoretic. I'm sure maybe there might be a future reference later on, but when we get there, we'll talk about it. But it's not here at all. Verse 25, this Septuagint just makes them out to be a better people, more commendable people. Verse 25, scattered versus naked. The people was scattered versus they were naked. Rejoicing to their enemies versus shame among their enemies. So this is a confusing saying in either translation. So the people were scattered, but who are the enemies? Why would they be rejoicing? Are the Israelites rejoicing, or are their enemies rejoicing? An alternate translation of the Greek word for rejoicing is to thrive or to greet. So it may possibly mean they were scattered in order that they would survive the punishment from their enemies. But perhaps this is related to what Jesus Christ said, saying, whoever keeps the commandments is my family, and by extension is a friend of Elohim. All of this is my own speculation. Those who disobey and transgress would be then enemies to not all of Israel. Not all of Israel followed the sin. Perhaps they were scattered according to those who worshiped the golden calf and did not, and those who did not. We can see an additional division when Moses called those who are on Yah's side to him. So let me just pause for a moment. And I reached out to a brother in the faith regarding this verse because it was so confusing to me. I didn't really understand. I didn't have the understanding for it. So I'm going to read what he sent to me regarding Exodus 32, verse 25. Let's just read it one more time in the Sept. When Moshe saw that the people was scattered, for Aharon had scattered them, so as to be a rejoicing to their enemies. So if a person looks at this verse closely, they will see all the people are still physically together, but that is not how this verse should be understood. Israel had been mentally and spiritually diverted and led away from the way of blessings as given in Deuteronomy chapter 28. This led to their despicable behavior. I have sheep at home, and sometimes something entices or frightens them to breach the fence. The Bible in this verse likens the fence to the way of blessings that was put there to keep them safe. Aharon, by his actions, had caused Israel to stray outside this barrier of protection. They were, in the eyes of their shepherd, scattered outside of his protected area. So Aaron had scattered them, right, as the shepherd. In the eyes of their shepherd, Yehoshua, Jesus Christ, any of his sheep outside of his fence, the way of his blessings, is scattered or gone astray. So they've gone astray in this sense. That's what scattered means. Aaron had scattered them, but they had decided to be scattered. Aaron had a large part in the scattering process by fashioning the golden calf image idol, and Aharon by this action had egged them on, so to speak. When Israel was inside the fence, the way of blessings, they were safe from their enemies, but outside the fence, Israel was easy prey for their enemies. Israel outside their shepherd's fence was a point of great rejoicing for Israel's enemies. The Bible uses the words scattered and gone astray interchangeably sometimes. Isaiah 53 verse 6 speaks in the same context when it states, all we as sheep have gone astray. Everyone has gone astray or been scattered in his way, and Yah gave him Christ up for our sins. In 2 Peter 2 verse 16, Peter uses gone astray or scattered in the same context. Forsaking the right way, they have gone astray or scattered. They have followed the way of Balaam, the son of Beor, who loved gain from wrongdoing. So that helped a lot. So thank you, brother, for that. But as you can see, yes, Aharon played a big part in scattering the people. He did scatter them by giving in to their demand of building a golden calf out of gold. And Isaiah 53 verse 6 is an interesting verse. I want to look at that before we continue on. So Isaiah 53 verse 6, all we as sheep have gone astray. All we as sheep have gone astray. Okay. Everyone has gone astray in his way, and Yah gave him up for our sins. Wow. That's deep. And then anyway, we'll read that later on in the future when we reach that point. So we're in Exodus chapter 32, I believe. And again, we just explained this verse. It wasn't easy to understand initially, but with the help of my brother in the faith there, we were able to gave me some understanding there from his point of view, and it's good to fellowship with others to get different perspectives, because if it's just me trying to understand something, I won't get it right every time. There are different vantage points that you can understand and see things a little more clearer and with more insight. When you have other perspectives, you can see iron sharpens iron anyhow. So that's all for that verse there. That makes more sense now that I've read that explanation. Verse 29, we're closing this chapter now. Filled your hands. Filled your hands. You have filled your hands this day. Versus seems to be an idiomatic expression. Perhaps verse 25 is another idiomatic expression that was lost in translation, which is scattered them. Oh, actually, we just went through that. So, yeah, it is something of an idiomatic expression as well when you look it deeper into it. So you filled your hands this day to Yah, each one on his son or on his brother, so that blessing should be given to you. So I understand that to be you have provided your hands this day, each one on his son or on his brother. So you provided to your son or your brother in this respect, versus consecrate yourselves today. So separate yourselves today, every man upon his son, upon his brother, that he may bestow upon you a blessing this day. So you'll be blessed because you separated your son and your brother. I guess you could, but it makes more sense that when you filled your hands this day to Yah, each one his son or his brother, so you're filling their hands, or you're filling your hands with them in the way that you may separate them, set them apart. So either one could make sense. And then the word forgive in verse 32 has been omitted. Now, if you will forgive their sin, forgive it. And if not, blot me out of your book, which you have written. So this is Moshe talking. Verses in the Maz, yet now if you will forgive their sin, dot dot dot, and if not, blot me. So that's a serious omission there. See, it's a big difference. It's one thing to ask for forgiveness, but to follow it up and say, if you will forgive your sin, forgive it. And I'm sure he's using a respectful tone. If you will forgive their sin, forgive it. And if not, blot me out of your book. So the last verse we're looking at now is verse 35. And Yah smote the people for making the calf which Aharon had made, versus Yah plagued the people. Either way, they were punished. So that's all I have to say about these chapters, Exodus 31 and 32. Thank you very much for your time. May our Father bless you, protect you. May he make your way prosperous and guide you to obey his commandments. I'm not a channel that just wants to tell you the differences between the Sept and the Maz, but to encourage people to obey these words. You know, the law was never done away with. We are expected that when we know better, specifically the things that we can do to the understanding that we've been given. So, you know, some things the Father may open your eyes to. For example, let's say the seventh day Sabbath. If he's giving you understanding to know about it and how to do it and to realize which day it is, the correct day, then you have the responsibility, the duty to observe that and to live by it. And it'll bless you immensely. And everyone learns at their own pace. Here I try to just present the truth and the truth of the word, which is the Septuagint translation, which existed during Yeshua's day. So thank you very much for your time again. This is Jack Knight signing off for Secrets Revealed, the Holy Bible. Shalom.